So we're at the halfway point from the first day of practice to the game here. We've been in camp for 15 days, and we got 15 to go before the first game. And the thing that we're talking to our team about, the thing we're stressing, is the urgency to continue to get better. Certainly, like everybody, a lot of progress has been made from day 1 to day 15. That's how it's supposed to be. But there's still a long way left to go, to be exactly where we want to be and be game ready week 1. And then, it's kind of never enough. It's a constantly ongoing process that we've talked about. And, for us, we have a group that's worked extremely hard up to this point. The level of effort at every practice is something that, as a coach, it's really all you can ask for. You're really proud of. Some days are better than others, like everywhere. But the focus, like we've talked about from the beginning with this group, has been really good, and the leadership has been on point. So, for these next 15 days getting ready, it's one day at a time, making little improvements day after day. And, hopefully we'll be at a point where we feel really good about going out there week 1.
How do you determine being ready and being rested? Do you dial it back here in the last couple of weeks?
There's a fine line, and I think that's a really good question, to be honest with you. We use, I've talked quite a bit about the data and the analytics that we use with our training staff and the metrics that we have. And the time to give them some time is coming up here a little bit, kind of starting to wear a little bit thin, but that's something that we're constantly monitoring. Once school starts, we'll be able to set the schedule a little bit where you start getting back to a normal schedule. After the scrimmage tomorrow, Sunday will be a really quick, short deal. Monday, they'll be completely off. We'll go Tuesday, Wednesday pretty hard. Thursday will be a walkthrough type of day. So we've got that stuff coming up, and we tell them that, we kind of tell, look, empty the tank now because it's coming. But that is something that I think you're constantly trying to manage and juggle, because I do think there's times in the past where we've gone out there and we've really not been very fresh, to start the season. And, when you play week 1, man, you want to go out there with all the bullets in the clip, and you want to go out there with those guys ready to play. So that's something that's definitely we're always looking at. I think it's probably easier now than it used to be, because you actually have data at your fingertips that you can tell, the level of fatigue and the level of output that they're putting out there. So for us, that is something we're managing. But the time's coming, where they'll get some time off and days off. And we've built the camp schedule where there are more days off this time than there have been in the past. So I think it's done us well. But we got to continue to manage that as a coaching staff.
Do you pull back individually? Like, you can see some guys with the data maybe not to take the day off, but do a little bit less because their legs are just not there for whatever the reason.
Correct. There are some guys that do that, but it's particularly DBs and receivers. They run so much. These guys run 3, 4 miles, 5 miles a day, and this is sprint miles, so those guys, sometimes their mileage starts to pile up a little bit, and you say, well, maybe we'll put him with the 2s, or we'll give him a 2 play and we'll tap him instead of going 3 or 4. You're constantly trying to look at that. And for us, it's a good thing, because you get to roll some of these maybe guys that are 2s up with the 1s a little bit more, and then 3s up with the 2s. So it's a good thing. That's the type of stuff that happens in the year, where somebody's down for a series or a game or a couple games, and someone else got to go play. So you get a chance to do that.
You mentioned 15 and 15 left. I'm sure you and your staff had an idea, certain questions, like, do you feel like y'all have answered most of what you didn't know, or is after tomorrow's second scrimmage you're going to kind of know a little more? How close are you to say, okay, this is the football team we have?
Well, I think you always hope you know what you got, at this point. It's so funny, though, because everything, since the spring, it's just been us against us, right? And, sometimes it's hard to tell, are you throwing it really good, or your defense DB's not playing good, or are you stopping the run really well, or is your O-line not playing very good? Sometimes it's hard to tell, but no, the execution is really where we want it. And, at this point in time, those things have been really good. We feel a lot better about the positions we had questions at. We've talked about running back. Those guys have really answered the bell. We talked about receiver. Really proud of that group stepping up the way they have. The O-line improvement is something that we've been talking about since the spring. On the defensive line, those guys are starting to gel. They're starting to play together a little bit. You added some new guys in the secondary that really fit, that are going to benefit us, that are going to help us win games. So a lot of those things you feel really good about. I think the scrimmages, the way we practice, I feel like the scrimmages are really, it's kind of just another practice. I don't know that it carries more weight than the other stuff. I think it's kind of another day, another practice. I think gives you an opportunity maybe to see young guys, how much they know. There's a difference between having a script that they can kind of, maybe study a little bit, kind of figure out what they're going to have. And then you get out there for a scrimmage and it's all on go. So, you kind of figure out how much they really know and how much they've kind of studied to get themselves out there to perform. So it's probably more young guys that you really get to see a little bit out of the scrimmage. But, as far as the older guys go, the way they practice and the way they do it, you kind of know what you got.
Following up on that.
Sorry, Dave. So to that point, where does usually, I guess, the most of the evaluation happen in the preseason camp? Is it those first 6 practices, or is it in between scrimmage 1, scrimmage 2?
I think it's every day. I mean, I don't know that it's any one more than the other. We tell them all the time, you've heard me say this, you don't win a job in a day, you don't lose one in a day. It's a collective body of work that, the standard is the standard and you're expected to meet and exceed it every day. And so, there are certain days like this past week, we had a scrimmage and we had 2 really tough practices, 2 days after that. And it's like, well, how much mental toughness do some of these guys have, and you're looking at that on those days. So I think every day is an opportunity to evaluate. I wouldn't say any one more than the other, though.
So following up on what they're saying, following the scrimmage tomorrow, where do you think percentage-wise you'll have the 2 deep, at least in your head, whether you tell foot or not? Regardless of that.
Can't tell that guy a whole lot.
Right, no, I mean, everybody will know it if you tell him. So in your mind, where do you think you'll be? Do you think there's, in the last half of camp and before the first game, how many spots do you think are still up for grabs?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you feel really good about where you're at in the 2 deep. I don't know exactly how many numbers-wise, but you feel like 90%, including special teams and everything, is where you feel like your 2 deep is pretty much set. I think a lot of maybe the uncertainty is probably in special teams because that is largely dependent on really how the offensive, defensive depth sits. And then there's always a handful of guys that you're going to bring there that are going to contribute on the 4 core special teams, but maybe not on offense or defense. So that's probably where the uncertainty is more than anything. These guys have really done a good job. They've come into camp. They took the time this summer to really learn the system and put themselves in position to go and go execute and go play well. It's not like you got a lot of these guys that are fighting for positions. The issue is not whether or not they know it. It's just kind of where they stack up in their development right now. So we feel really good about, putting out a 2 deep here, before the season, feel comfortable about where we're at. Some of it is, like I said, going to be special teams and where that falls out a little bit.
Coach, you have fans coming out tonight? Excited for that?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're supposed to say. Realistically, it's kind of, it just doesn't matter. For us, we got a script that we've got to go and run. We've got to go and execute. I've told the players that there's going to be people out there, and I told them exactly that. Doesn't matter. The work is the work, and kind of feel that way whether you play in front of 40,000 or you play in front of none at practice. It's just got to be. It's all between the white lines, and I think that's the focus that we need to have because especially whenever you go on the road, if you're just dependent on the crowd to get you ready to practice, then when you go behind enemy lines, you're not going to have a whole lot of motivation there. So it's for us, it's really just more about the work that's in front of us than it is that. But it's always good to have people there. I mean, it means football's right around the corner, and it's good to have people excited about it.
Where's the battle at right tackle right now?
Right now, George is definitely the guy at right tackle right now. Now Trent has done a really good job. Trent is super athletic. I think for Trent, I think continuing to develop physically is going to be big for him. He's athletic enough without a doubt. He knows it. But I think for him to really be ready to go and be a guy, I think, he probably needs to – another year would do him wonders, But you don't always have that luxury, especially with Quentin out right now. So Trent's done a really good job. I am incredibly proud of that guy. How far he's come from last year to this year, it's a testament to how hard he's worked. But right now, George is definitely. If we had to go play tomorrow, George is going out there first. And Trent would back him up with the possibility of moving Nate over and putting Big Brian at left tackle. So you got some options still there. But Trent's done a phenomenal job as well. Certainly we're wanting to get Quentin back. That's another really good piece that we don't have right now. But he's doing really well with his rehab. So we expect to have him early in the season. Hopefully first week, probably first 2-3 weeks is what we're hoping.
What has this preseason camp afforded, like you as the head coach, and kind of how you've structured practice as it pertains to how healthy you guys have been, like up to this point versus say where you were at this point last year?
Well, a lot of it goes back to what happens in January and February. And you make a lot of changes in the off-season program there. And Connor and his staff have done a phenomenal job. And, I trust him, I trust him to the nth degree, and he comes in and we talk and when we bounce ideas off of each other. And there are some things that certainly, are negotiable that we can change. And there are some things that, that I really feel like we have to do. And he's always really good at juggling that stuff. But, we changed a lot of things going back to that. And, we have a group of guys that have gotten physically a lot stronger. The functional movement and mobility is something that you work a ton on. That prevents injuries. I think the off season, the summer, the conditioning schedule that we had put them where they're in really good shape to come back out here. And then, I think the practice schedule and the format, the way we do it, I think helps. We practice on grass a lot more than we have than turf. I think that helps. And certainly you always have to have some luck too. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, I'd love to say that, we had the answer to do it every year, but, we've been fortunate. And you can't ever negate the fact that the kids have to do the right stuff. They have to take care of themselves. They have to rest. They have to recover. They have to do the things we're asking, and they've done that. So it takes all those things, in my opinion, to really get to a point where you've got a healthier squad. And I mean, that's really what you need. Last year we had way too many weapons that we couldn't use for a variety of different reasons I won't get into. But we had way too many guys that we couldn't play for a number of reasons. And I mean, you only got 85 scholarships, and you got some guys that are going to be good players are not ready yet. When they're forced to go early, I mean, I think you can do more damage than good. So having all those guys available to us, having some that were out for camp that are going to be back early in the year, that's going to be a shot in the arm too. So, I think a lot of it goes back to Connor and his staff. And I think a lot of the credit you have to give it to the players. I mean, they have been really focused on doing the right stuff, and it's paid off, so far as health goes.
At Media Day, Sunbelt Media Day, you made the comment of how y'all gave up a fair amount of yards last year, but always seemed to come up with turnovers. And you lost a lot of experience in the secondary. How much, and it seemed like you might even be more athletic how much of those turnovers is experience, or how much of that is a concern where you might have to give up fewer yards than I get the turnovers, or are you seeing that ability still?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are still getting some turnovers out there, and that's a two-way street too. I talk about it. It's like get a turnover on defense, well, you're pumped, but on the other hand, you're pissed at the offense, for turning it over. So it's a two-way street. But we have a lot of guys back there that are flying around, getting to the ball and doing things. You do turnover circuits every day. You do tackle circuits every day. You do ball security, which is not just for the offense; it's for the defense too, to teach them to rip it out. So you do as much of those things as you can to prepare them. But certainly, yeah, I mean, some of it does come down to experience, right? It's having seen so many things that they understand what's going to happen. So, for us, it's trying to maybe speed up the learning curve for some of those younger guys that don't have quite as much experience. And then the ones who did play last year and the year before and earned some experience, it needs to carry over. But yeah, I mean, if you don't get turnovers, then yeah, you got to get 3 and outs, and you got to stop the bleeding a little bit earlier, but we kind of went back to it, a few years back whenever we led the country in red zone defense. I think we had like 3 interceptions in the red zone. Well, that's where, that's where the difference is made. I mean, like the top 5 defenses in the country in red zone scoring percentage, and the bottom 10, it's like a 10% difference. So, I mean, kickers make field goals, right? Offenses score touchdowns. I mean, points happen down there. It comes down to probably turnovers and just limiting, one or, getting, 1 or 2 a game in critical situations is really a big deal. So for us, our goal is always to get at least 2 on defense. And we feel like when we do that, we add a possession to the offense, right? And we feel like you got a chance to win when you do that.